Okay. All right, we're going to call to order at 6:01 the Montgomery Economic Development Corporation meeting for September 18th. Present are Carol Langley, Dan Walker, Byron Sanford, Mayor Byron Sanford, and myself, Jeff Angelo. We also have Dave and Nikki with us, and an incredible audience. So without further ado, we'll get this meeting kicked off. Should we just go ahead and get right into it, Mr. Dave?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So for first on the agenda is the consideration approval of the meeting minutes of, yes.
Do you want to ask if there's any public comment?
Oh, yes. So is there any public comment before we get started? Sorry, I'm new to this. No? Okay.
Pray for rain.
All right, then we'll jump ahead
Pray
then.
for rain.
What's that?
Pray for rain.
Pray for rain? Yeah, rain's good. So we have first on the agenda the approval of the special meeting minutes of July 10th, 2023. Let me add that Ron Lundeen has just joined us. So, Nikki, first off, thank y'all.
Diana.
Oh, it's Diana?
Diana.
Yes.
Does Nikki do the meeting or Diana?
So Diana is Deputy City Secretary. She does it for us, and Nikki does the City Council.
Oh, well, thank you, Diana. I'm sorry. Yes. Okay, anyway, you're fantastic. Thank you. I appreciate you getting them all up to date for us. Thank you. So anyway, do we have any comments on the meetings from the special meeting that we had on the July 10th? Yes, no?
Nope.
Okay, can we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting of July the 10th, 2023.
I second it.
So there's been a motion and a second to approve the special meeting minutes of July the 10th, 2023. This is amenable, debatable,
It requires a majority vote.
and requires a majority vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, well, we'll go ahead and approve the minutes for special minutes of July 10th. Next up on the agenda, the approval of the special meeting minutes of August the 18th, 2023. And these minutes, did everybody have a chance to look over the minutes? Yes? Yes, okay. Are there any comments on those minutes? Yes, no, maybe? Okay. So, I guess then we can entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll make a motion. You approve the minutes
Okay, Mr.
of the
Sir.
regular meeting of August 18, 2023.
Anybody second?
I'll second his motion.
Okay, so Byron has made a motion to accept the minutes of the regular meeting minutes of August 18, 2023. That is seconded by Mr. Walker. It's amenable, debatable, and requires a majority vote. I'll get it eventually. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Well, the motion carries, so we'll accept the minutes, the regular minutes of the meeting for August 18th, 2023. Next on our agenda, we're moving really quickly here. Isn't that nice? Okay, I won't talk much more then, okay. It's consideration of possible action on approval of an $8,000 sponsorship for the 2023 Montgomery Fall Festival. And I know we had quite a bit of discussion about this in our last special budget meeting. Would anybody like to make a comment on Carol? Do you have anything you want to say about this? No? Not so much? Okay, Mr. Walker? Good. Nothing for you? No?
Good to go.
Okay, well, do we have a motion then?
I make a motion to approve the expenditure of $8,000 for the sponsorship for the 2023 Montgomery Fall Festival.
And I'll second that.
Okay, it has been motioned and seconded that that the consideration of possible action are that we will accept the approval of an $8,000 sponsorship for the 2023 Montgomery Fall Festival. This is amenable, debatable, requires a majority of vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Well, the motion carries. We're going to pass along an $8,000 sponsorship to you, Mr. Diggs, and to your organization. Thank you for the great work you guys do.
All the paperwork comes in right, then we're good.
We're
Good
good.
to go.
Last item on the agenda is the consideration of possible action on a recommendation to City Council for the fiscal year 2024 MEDC budget. And it is now open for discussion and any comments on that?
I'll give you guys just a little bit of feedback, as the agenda report says. So following the budget workshop, there was one change between Gary and Mary Ann, both being new. They didn't realize that there were ongoing contracts with the EDC, both for the McCown Street, streetscape redesign and the wayfinding project that are both ongoing. So we took a look at the budget to see, where could we pull from. We looked back at the event budgets for what we spent this year on our events and tried to align a budget, that was based on that. You guys still have some money, in your reserves if there's events that come along. Certainly you do have the money. You will see in the budget that's in your packet, as well as a hard copy there in front of you, just some notes, out to the side, so you can see where the 2022, 2023 activity is, under these events. And is, if I just start at the top of the page, you see the McCown Streetscape project. It's got $113,000 left to expend on that. $30,500 for the wayfinding project, and then as you get down into the events, you can see it's going to be the third column from the right, the 2022, 2023 year-to-date activity that shows you what the EDC has spent on these events so far this year. And again, between Gary, Miss Mary Ann, and myself, we looked at what we could do to fund the two ongoing projects that the EDC and the council approved in last year's budget. And we happy to answer any thoughts or questions. We worked with Patty to make sure she could, do something with nothing. In terms of, what these, kind of what the anticipated expenses for the events are. But again, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
I have a request from a citizen to update the Fernland sign, for example. It's just getting old and that sort of thing. So where would that typically, I know in the past we've wrestled with some of that. Is there a place in this budget that type of thing? I see a 50,000 economic development, where was it? Downtown and corridor facility that we kind of put for general.
Certainly the EDC could pay for, so, the Fernland sign, the first place, the staff would like to look is to the Public Works Department under their Parks and Rec budget. Mike allocates a certain amount of money for each facility. He's likely not planned on, a new sign, but, certainly it's something that we could take a look at and see where, even if it were a cost share, but it really is a city expense. There's certainly the tourism component to it, but it's a city park that the city ought to be able to cover.
So kind of coupled with that is the wayfinding. Trying to not necessarily match that wayfinding, but certainly something that doesn't just completely stray from the big picture, getting them off the road type of deal. So where's the wayfinding budget for that?
Right now, we don't have any cost for the actual signage. Again, if you guys, I don't remember when the consultant had said, but for a total build out of it, and he will have a better number for us as we start to as they finish the design to know exactly you need X number of signs of X size at these locations. But in general, those wayfinding projects turnkey in terms of signage, is usually $300,000 to $500,000. You know, I realize that's a big window, you know, but again, a lot of that is going to depend on, you know, the total quantity of signs and you know, the final design of them. But, you know, obviously, you know, he did mention, I'm sure in his presentation, the idea of a phased, you know, installation, not trying to bite all of that off at once. You know, we look at the main corridors and figure out, okay, you know, how much would this be? Again, you know, the EDC, you know, would be a great partner to the city, but it would ultimately be a city-led, you know, installation of those signs. You know, candidly, with where I see the budget this year, it may or may not be something that the city can, you know, fund, and, you know, we'll certainly look to the EDC if you guys are willing to, you know, partner with the city on, you know, at least kind of the first phase of the work on the signage.
Okay, so in an event like it's not on this new budget going forward, I know, but the event that was just music in the park, do we commit to tear down, set up, barricade in that?
We did not. They've not asked the city for I forget how many years, but it was, you know, back when it was the Wine and Music Festival, the EDC did sponsor that, you know, almost on an annual basis, if I recall. She's not asked for any of that partnership,
Okay.
you know, in a number of years.
Is that still downtown?
They moved it this year, was the first year they had it at Montgomery County Park, which, again, you know, to touch on the wayfinding or tie it back to the wayfinding project, that was, you know, an out-of-city location that we wanted to be able to direct people to, but it was at the one, just on 149 North, it was about 2 miles north.
Oh,
of
in the
city.
ball field up there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't go to it this weekend, I was out of town, so I don't know if any of y'all happened to see it, but
Didn't even know we had it.
saw
Also
it
on
on
here,
social media, but didn't, and again, that was a chamber-sponsored event.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, wasn't anything that we did.
So did we not allow anything for the social media advertising in that block there? I see.
Yeah, 3,000.
We've got 3,000 budgeted there.
Oh, okay,
That's
okay.
a 0% change from last year.
Okay, that's what I'm, okay,
Yeah.
no problem.
And what that, in addition to just kind of the more tactical or tactile things, you know, like to boost a particular post, it also pays for the MailChimp, which is, I'm going to get out of that one real quick, but is a way to, you know,
Communicate.
email the folks who signed up at, you know, different events and things like that to them to communicate, you know, what's going on.
Okay.
And just to reiterate, the transfers to general fund was in large part follow-up 380 agreements are part of it.
Those are up in the public, no, I'm sorry, under the business and development. The admin transfer of $275,000, again, that's, you know, essentially costs that, you know, that Gary's asked Mary Ann, you know.
Okay, so that's that number.
Yeah, those are basically, you know, MEDC, or those are expenses that the EDC can spend money on. You know, the city budget this year is extremely tight, and so Gary and Mary Ann are asking the EDC to pick up a little more of it this year.
I thought it was more than that. Is it?
It was.
Is it transfer to? What's the transfer to capital projects?
That's
Okay, that's what you're talking about.
Yes.
I was talking about the admin transfer down in, under category 5 on page 2.
This one here. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So what is that one? And so how is that different than transfer to capital projects?
The capital project is just dedicated to capital projects. So that goes into capital project fund, not into the general fund.
And so the general fund, what are we paying for in the general fund? What's the idea?
The idea is to, so historically, the EDC paid.
For the
it was
admin
essentially a legacy
staff.
number of, you know, we call it, you know, roughly a third of the city administrator's salary.
Yeah.
In reality, the EDC uses a lot more than a third of the city administrator's salary.
Yep.
Uses the finance office, uses the city secretary's office, you know, uses the space that we're in now, uses the office space that, or a lot of the office space that's part of the admin, you know, department, if you will. So
Did y'all talk about this in the workshop?
Yes.
Yes.
And we,
And it could go toward another personnel potentially?
yes,
So the.
that's where the bulk of it is.
You know, there's about, you know, it's 39,000 and change that's in there between. So the idea is that when we hire a full-time economic development director, that Gary no longer needs to spend a third of his time on that person. So some of that money comes out. He still needs to manage them in the way that he would manage another department head, you know, essentially.
That's basically whatever it
I
takes to
get
get
it.
there.
And it seems high, but if it's too high, then you can always adjust or anything.
It's a little bit, there's a little bit of everything in there too.
Yeah.
You've got, you know, office supplies and.
Air conditioning
rent,
costs,
air
office
conditioning,
rental.
Cleaning, maintenance, you name it, it's in there. And then, of course, there's a city secretary and a portion of the city
And
admin.
this expenses from this will get notified every meeting. It just seems like a big pot of money that things can get lost
Yeah,
in.
the idea, yeah. So as time goes on, the idea is that more and more will shift from the EDC back to the.
Back to the city.
Back to the city. And
I
so.
think this is a one-year stopgap based on revenues,
It just
exactly.
seems like we have this big transfer to general fund, and then we've got all these subcategories for all these different events.
Well,
Just kind
yeah,
of
but
filling in the
the
details.
nice thing is that we can, you know, we can put it wherever we want to that way, you know. If we need to move things around a little bit, we have the ability to do that by categorizing it.
And then we're,
Events.
oh, I guess, never mind.
So one of the things that I think kind of did a disservice to the budget was pigeonholing, you know, events into all these, it could go on and on and on forever, but you can't pull them off the budget for two to 3 years? 5 years.
5 years.
So these items that we no longer
Is
do.
it 5 or 3? I mean, we know we discussed some
I
of that.
believe it's 5.
Yeah. Gary, I talked with him, he said it's 5 years, and so we can't take them off the budget for 5 years, so we have to leave.
You just don't fund.
You just don't fund them, yeah. But the fact that they stay on there forever is, or not forever, but for quite a while it gets a little muddy. It'd be nice just to go ahead and put it under events, and that way we have some flexibility.
But when the public looks at it, if you've had it on there for 5 years and then it's gone, it's easier to visit with the public when it was on there. So now, and a zero lets everybody know you're not spending anything. But when it's completely gone,
I see that.
they're concerned about what happened.
Will these internal budget numbers be available on the public?
We can certainly, you know, make that happen.
I think that would go a long ways to answer Carol's.
They told me it would not.
You know, there's nothing wrong with the EDC, you know, keeping a published list of their events. It just doesn't belong in a city budget.
I'm pretty certain,
Yeah.
but don't quote me, that I could have sworn I heard Mr. Palmer say that that's indeed what's happened, is that everything that the public's able to see, they can still see what's allotted, they can still see what was spent. But for internal accounting, it may look more like this.
Right, it's, you know, I think, you know, the EDC has, in the past couple of years, you know, adopted even, a different, you know, format to its budget. And, you know, this year we're taking a course correction and going back, you know, the EDC's budget is a part of the city's budget. It's one fund.
Right.
You know, that's part of, you know, what makes up all of the city's budget. You know, like, I was looking at, you know, one from a couple of years ago, and it was, you know, adopted on this date with a different cover sheet than the city's adopted date. And it's, you know, the EDC doesn't adopt a budget. The EDC, you know, recommends to council, you know,
What their budget needs to look like.
what their, right, you know, what their line items are, but ultimately, you know, council is the only one that can adopt the budget.
Okay.
So, you know, some of it is in, you know, just the semantics of it, and, you know, but it, you know, kind of, again, goes into the idea that, you know, this is a component unit, you know, of the city. It's got, you know, some autonomy, but, you know, when you get down to the, you know, to the spending of tax dollars, you know, that really all should always stay, at the council level. Those are the folks that, they're driving that.
Can we just have a document anytime an event comes up? We have a document on the side that says, y'all's total budget for events is this, and this is what y'all had kind of somewhat anticipated spending money on these
Right.
events.
Yep.
Having a side, so it doesn't be, we don't have to do an official budget. We have a side, just keeping track, and I think that's
Right.
good enough
Yeah,
to me.
absolutely, and that's one of the things that we've asked Patty to do. She is very, very meticulous at, tracking, those expenses. A point that she had made even, like, so there's a contest and prizes line item here. And that would be for things like buying plaques for the folks who won the Christmas light event.
I think, Dave, just as long as, like Carol says, the residents know that we are going to continue funding some of these events so that they don't just go away, or the ones that we know are going away, that they know they are going away. Just some clarity there, whatever way that needs to look. I think that's probably the final piece for this budget. But with that caveat, I don't see any reason. I mean, for the most part, the budget looks fine, and it's exactly, you captured exactly what we discussed in our last workshop. So
We will make sure to have a very good document that's on the EDC's website that's updated, again, and it's going to give y'all the flexibility that if you decide you want to pet parade, you can spend money on it, but if you don't and you need that $5,000, it doesn't take a budget amendment, from city council to say, hey, let's move that over here.
I agree. I think that the whole idea is perfectly sound logic. It's just a matter of making sure that the public sees it for what it is, like it's intended for. So yeah, I agree. Carol, do you have any problem with, or do you?
Think about it this way, like you don't have a separate line item for office supplies and a separate line item for, I don't know, downtown development improvements. You don't have 20 different sub-line items for that. We're keeping track of that stuff. So that's how I'm viewing it.
Well,
we don't need that level of detail here. If we need to track it somewhere else, we can.
Agreed. And one thing that we didn't mention in that workshop that was in part of the administrative, this 275 transfer it was also for the internal audit that takes place, that we take on a third of that cost. So it's like a $33,000 hit. So
Yeah, that gets listed in the expenses report. So every month we'll see what we're spending money on. As far, and that transfers back to pay for Gary or whoever. That happens on a month-to-month basis too, so we can keep track of where that money is. Does it get spelled out in the expense report?
Yeah.
Okay.
She gives, we were talking last week about, the finance report, for MEDC. I know it's been a long time since y'all have seen one. And, she's at the tail end of, this budget thing. She came on in June or July. So, it was a couple months down. Stepping into the finance director role and had a lot of work to do to get this budget, not only the EDC's budget, but, which is, just a fraction of the city budget, to get all that in order in enough time for council to, have a budget that they can adopt next Tuesday night to meet state law. And so we were talking about, what she, would typically show. And, it's a two-part deal. One, where you are kind of year-to-date on these, line items, and the other is a dollar for dollar, like a check register that you guys are used to seeing. It's probably not going to be 40 pages like the last ones, where all the good information is buried in a whole bunch of stuff that really doesn't, have as much importance, but it'll be, a very detailed, recording of what, the EDC funds are spent on and where they're going.
Okay. Well, any other questions?
And just my note, I still would like to see our reserve kind of earmarked. I know there's been some concern in the past that we have all this money and it's just floating out there doing nothing, but really we're kind of earmarking it for downtown development stuff.
Right.
And if we want to earmark a certain portion of it, we had that noted, just like we're showing with parties or events, sorry. With events, we can show, this is our total budget for events, and these are the money that we've earmarked for these events. Same thing with our reserve fund. This is the money that we have earmarked, so that the public can see that there's intention here.
Yeah, I think that of the concerns I've heard, that tends to be the biggest one is, are we actually going to utilize our reserves for the development that we've been working on for quite some time? And there's just a misconception. But it's also a social media thing, making sure that people are in the know about some of the upcoming things to build the excitement and to let them know that we're still, these are some of the events that are upcoming and we're excited to continue on with, you know? That might be more of an events, announcement. But I think, Carol, did you have anything specific that you wanted to say about how we accept, or do you want, with no amendment or anything like that? Just sort of with a caveat that maybe we keep the transparency alive, okay, on our internal spending and what we're planning to do. And of course, that will also be available to the public as well, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Well, if there's no more discussion on this, shall we go ahead and accept the budget as is? I'll entertain a motion to consider this fiscal year 2024 MEDC budget to present as a recommendation to City Council. Do we have anybody who wants to entertain that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Ryan Lundeen has made a motion to accept the budget as is as a recommendation to City Council for fiscal year 2024 MEDC. Are there any seconds?
I'll second it.
Okay, Byron has seconded. Okay, so this action is amendable, debatable, and requires a majority vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes carry it. This budget is passed. That concludes the meeting for today. Are there any other?
Board inquiry?
You guys have a board inquiry if you guys want to?
Yeah, just kind of a summative, what I expressed before, I'm not giving up on HGAC's help. So just an hour ago, I got a call back from someone who referred me to the executive director. So I just heard from the executive director himself that he's going to send a group to me, and I'm going to show him what actually is our city defined as Montgomery, the city of. And I expressed to them, based on a meeting that I attended in Conroe, which evidently we're not the only city who felt that way, their demographics are not right. They're just plain not right. And in our case, they're not right on steroids. They're just totally bogus that we can't get help for our infrastructure based on the exponential growth that we're experiencing. So we've been getting kicked out of every effort from the HGAC to get funds, whether it be flood mitigation, whether it be economic development, whether it be roads, bridges, whatever we need, and we get kicked out and we waste manpower hours. And I told them, I said, I'm not wasting any manpower hours. If you're going to sit there and tell me we're going to beat our heads against the same wall over and over, then just tell me and we'll call it good. And so they're reaching out to us now. And so I told them, I said specifically, April Sound and Walden, I would love to tax them till the cows come home, but I can't. And if that's what they're including in our little Montgomery, then no wonder they think we're so wealthy. We are not wealthy in my view. Not enough to take 1,500 homes and all the economic development we need to bring to this city and jobs with it. We got our work cut out for them, and we could use a chunk of change, and it just saddens me that a place like Katy, anybody driven through Katy, you think they're deserving of $15 million worth of help? Why not us?
Right. So
I will report back on what that comes, and it's either going to come or it's not. So I'm a praying guy. I hope everybody prays without ceasing. We need some God-sized miracle to happen here, because we need a chunk of change. $18 million worth of water infrastructure alone, and a dilapidated Lone Star Loop that needs to get fixed.
yes.
So we're going to still try, and that's the pot of money I can find. that I would rather not finance too much money, but we're going to have to finance some. So if we see any of that happen, it's going to make the EDC a lot less burdened going forward. And that's what I hope this economic director finds.
Well, I think you're right, and I think having that economic development director is going to be critical, and I know that we're getting closer to getting to that point, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Why don't you just update us a little bit, Dave, if you can, on two things, if you don't mind. One is the progress for, application progress for filling a seat, and the second one is for the director and how I know we need to get past the budget, but now that we're past that, where do we go from here?
Sure. So to the EDC appointments, so Gary believes that he's got 3 applications. And again, this next EDC director must be a resident of the city. Again, just as a reminder, your bylaws do require that a majority of the board be residents of the city. So we've got 3 applications in that he's going to workshop with the city council on the 25th, which is next Monday, I believe. And then hopefully be, bringing that to them on the 26th so they can make a decision on the appointment.
Okay.
And so once we get, a fully staffed board, then you guys will take the next step to appoint a president. So they won't be appointing the president of the EDC, they'll just be appointing a director to fill the open seat, and then the board, has the latitude to select the president, from your ranks, once you've got a fully staffed one. To the EDC director position, so I've got a draft job description that I just need to review with Gary. He's been, he was out today doing some of the, the hard work. He was at golf tournament. But, he was making the connections that you absolutely, have to make in our region. And so, so when he and I sit down and I get his, okay with the job description, then I'm going to get it out to all of y'all for feedback. And the subcommittee, met once before the last meeting on it. But, we'll get you guys the job description so you guys are good with it. And then at your next meeting, we'll be asking you to for the go-ahead, to post the position.
Okay.
So,
Good progress. All right, that sounds great. Yeah. Any other discussion about any items? Anybody? Yes, no, maybe? I guess that's it, Dave.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, can I hear a motion to adjourn?
I made the motion.
Who did? Brian did? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I was good on this side. Okay, how about a second? Okay, Dan's seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, we will adjourn at 6:33 p.m. I would like to say that that's a record, by the way.
Yes, it is. What is that? Oh, the timing? I don't think